All right, let's dive into one of the most incredible, most audacious heists in India's history. And trust me, this isn't just a story about stolen money. Oh no, it's a tale of genius-level planning, a 2-year-long dead end for investigators, a wild breakthrough that came literally from space, and an ending? Well, an ending that is just pure, unbelievable irony. So let's talk numbers. 5.78 crore rupees. We're talking about roughly 770,000 US dollars. But the crazy part isn't how much they stole, it's how. This wasn't a bank vault heist. A gang of thieves managed to steal all of this by cutting a hole in the roof of a high-security train while it was speeding through the night.
So the two big questions are, right? How on earth did they actually manage to do that? And did they get away with it? The story of the heist itself, and it's something straight out of a Hollywood movie. But the ending, what happened to the cash and the guys who stole it, well, let's just say no screenwriter could have ever seen that twist coming. Okay, so our story actually begins not with the crime itself, but with its shocking discovery. The date is August 9th, 2016, and the Salem-Chennai Express train has just pulled into its final stop, Chennai Egmore Railway Station.
I want you to picture this. Officials from the Reserve Bank of India are waiting on the platform. They're there to collect a high-value shipment, 226 sealed wooden boxes filled with currency. But when they unseal and open the doors to the parcel coach, they just find chaos. Boxes are smashed open, notes are scattered everywhere, and there's a gaping 2-by-2-foot hole in the ceiling with daylight just streaming right in. Now here's a really interesting detail. The thieves weren't stealing crisp new money. This was what's called soiled currency. We're talking about a massive shipment of 342 crore rupees in old, torn, and dirty banknotes that were on their way to the RBI to be destroyed. You'd think it's a low-risk target, but get this, it was still protected by a security detail of 18 police officers who were riding in the very next coach. So to really understand what those officers completely missed, we've got to go back 24 hours. Let's join the thieves up on the roof of that Salem-Chennai Express as it's thundering through the darkness.
Their plan was just brilliant. This was no smash-and-grab job. Every single step was meticulously calculated. They knew exactly which coach to hit, they brought battery-powered tools to cut through the metal roof, and they even planned their escape down to the exact overbridge where they knew the train would have to slow down. Incredible.
So you might be wondering, how do you work on the roof of an Indian train without, getting instantly electrocuted? Well, they had done their homework. The thieves knew that for a long stretch of the journey, from Salem to a station called Virudhachalam, the train used a diesel engine. And that meant no deadly, high-voltage overhead wires. It gave them a perfect and safe window of opportunity to pull the whole thing off. The crime was, in a word, perfect. The police had absolutely no clue it had even happened until it was all over. But the investigation that followed? Well, that was anything but perfect. For 2 full years, the case was completely cold. 730 days. No arrests, no real suspects, 0 leads. It became this huge embarrassment for the investigators, and the story of the great train robbery just slowly started to fade from the news. And when I say they had nothing, I mean they had absolutely nothing to go on. Nobody saw a thing, there was no usable CCTV footage. They did find fingerprints and even a few drops of blood, but they didn't match anyone in any criminal database. And the worst part? Because it was old currency that was going to be destroyed, the serial numbers of the stolen notes were never recorded. The money was completely untraceable. But just when the case seemed totally hopeless, a really wild idea led to one of the most incredible breakthroughs in the history of Indian criminal investigation. The CB-CID, that's the Crime Branch Criminal Investigation Department. They were desperate. This special branch of the police had questioned over 2,000 people across several states. They'd re-examined the crime scene evidence time and time again. Every conventional method had totally failed. So they decided to try something radical, something that had apparently never, ever been done before in an Indian criminal investigation. They decided to look for answers from way, way up. Yeah, you heard that right. The Tamil Nadu police reached out to NASA. Can you even believe that? They made a formal request for high-resolution satellite imagery of the train's entire 350-kilometer journey on the exact night of the robbery. They were hoping, just maybe, they could see something from space. And this is where it all came together beautifully.
At the same time, IT experts were analyzing cell tower data along the route, and they found this little cluster of phone numbers from Madhya Pradesh that were moving perfectly in sync with the train's speed. Now, by itself, that wasn't enough. But then they combined it with the NASA images, which, incredibly, showed several human-like figures on top of the train's roof. The images even showed the figures just disappearing, right before Veerachalam, exactly where the thieves planned their escape. It was the smoking gun.
So with this unbelievable high-tech evidence, the police finally had their guys. The phone numbers and the profiles led them straight to a notorious criminal gang from Madhya Pradesh known as the Pardee Gang, led by a career criminal named Mohan Singh Pardee.
So, in October of 2018, more than 2 years after the heist, members of the gang were finally caught. And under interrogation, they confessed to everything. They admitted they'd been watching the train route for weeks, that they planned the whole heist, and that they pulled it off exactly like the police had finally figured out. But here it is, the ultimate, unbelievable twist in the story. Remember, the gang had stolen old 500 and 1,000 rupee notes. Well, just 3 months after they pulled off their criminal masterpiece, on November 8, 2016, the Indian government announced demonetization, and that move immediately made those exact banknotes illegal. Their treasure had become worthless paper overnight. So, after managing to buy a few small properties, they were just stuck with crores of cash they couldn't spend, they couldn't exchange, they couldn't do anything with it. They had pulled off the heist of a lifetime, only for their prize to turn to ash. In the end, they had no choice. They had to burn most of it.
Of course, this case exposed some massive security flaws. And in the aftermath, the RBI and Indian Railways had to completely overhaul their rules. Now, police escorts have to sit inside the cash carriage, not in the one next door. And things that seem obvious, like CCTV and GPS tracking, have become mandatory for these kinds of shipments.
So you'd think that's it, right? Case closed, gang caught, money gone. But the final chapter of this incredible story actually involves the mastermind himself, Mohan Singh Pardee.
You heard that correctly. Despite his detailed confession, despite the mobile data, despite the evidence from NASA, the leader of the gang was released on bail in 2021. The official reason? A lack of evidence that would actually hold up in court.
And that right there leaves us with a final, really unsettling thought. Mohan Singh Pardee, a man with over 50 criminal cases against him for everything from robbery to murder, walks free. It makes you wonder about a crime that was so brilliantly solved by technology and persistence, but in the end, was maybe left completely unpunished.